should your boss, David Cunliffe, have gone skiing with his family?
Oh, look, I believe that he needs to take time off. I mean, I know what it's like as a leader. I mean, you're under incredible pressure and you need some downtime. If you don't have downtime, everything starts to go wrong.
So why are some people from Labor so angry about it then?
Well, there's only one person for I understand.
Who was that? Who was that?
I have no idea, mate. No idea.
You must.
Well, you'd have a better idea.
All right, here we go. I won't tell us all. No one. I mean, this is
off the record.
This is late night TV.
Look, you've got more viewers than this watching this show.
All right, but do you know who it is?
No, I don't. No.
All right.
Seriously.
Okay, Louise, what do you reckon about this? Have you got a 4-day working week, 3-day weekend? Would you be open to it in New Zealand?
Well, I mean, I think it entirely depends on, what sort of business you're talking about, what sort of issues individuals want. I personally think really those sorts of decisions are between the employer and the employee. If you've got someone who wants to do university study... I think it should be flexible. I don't think it should be mandated.
But then you've got everyone sort of working nearly every. But if you had a whole nation working, say, a 35-hour week, or as the Slingshot CEO says, a 4-day week, basically productivity soared in his company.
Yeah, and it worked for his company. I think there'd be a lot of companies that wouldn't work for. If I look at some of the employers in Taupō, for example, that are in the tourism industry, they operate 7 days a week. What works for their business might not be the same as what works for Slingshot.
Okay, Eugenie, what about you? Would you be open, or would the Green Party be open to a 4-day working week for all of New Zealand?
Well, I think that should be looked at because we work too hard in New Zealand. We need to work smarter, which is why we've got a big innovation package of $1 billion over 3 years in research and development.
How many hours
so that we can add value, because at the moment we're working harder and our productivity is really low.
How many hours a week do you work?
Lots, but I love my work, so... but it is lots. It wouldn't work for MPs, but yeah, we should look at it.
Well, it wouldn't work for MPs, so you'd put in 14, 15-hour days sometimes?
Well, probably not. About 12, 13.
About 12, 13. What about you, David? When you're a leader of a party, what sort of hours were you working?
16, 17-hour days. And you'd normally have a weekend that was maybe get 3 or 4 hours and maybe on a Saturday and maybe 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday. And that's what I mean when you say you need a break. You actually do need a break, otherwise you really do get...
So are you saying that New Zealanders, don't really quite understand the pressure that a leader is under?
No, I mean, I certainly...
And would that go for John Key?
Absolutely. I mean, completely. I mean, he would be doing exactly the same hours. There's no doubt about that. And that's why... I've never had a shot at John Key for not working hard. He does work hard. I see him in the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's still working at 11 o'clock at night. So
all right, then, Louise,
sort of
you've just heard that. What do you think then about David Cunliffe? Was he right or wrong to take that holiday? What do you think?
Well, if you think about, if I think for myself, is it appropriate time to take holidays? I think about what's going on in my life. I think about, am I rested? Is there a lot of work I need to do? So there's a lot of factors you take into that decision, and in that instance, it was David Cunliffe's call to make, and he made it.
Right call?
Look, I'm not going to comment on that. I do believe that it's important for you to spend time with your children, spend time with your family. He chose to do that then, and that's entirely his call to make. And I don't think that we should be critical of MPs spending time with their children.
That's a very good point.
We hear about how hard MPs work, how hard their leaders work and so forth. You know who works just a little bit harder than those guys? Is the people that work for the MPs. And we've got Louise Upston's EA. What's
EA?
Libby here. Hello, Libby.
Hello, Damien.
It's very late in the evening and you haven't gone home yet.
How do you know? I might have started at lunchtime. I didn't start at lunchtime. She knows that.
Louise's eyes just did that thing she does when she sits behind, John Key and Parliament TV. She went like that. Yeah. No, you didn't start at lunchtime, did you?
No, I didn't. I started at 8:27, I think it was, this morning.
What do you think about doing a 35-hour week?
I personally, I couldn't do a 35-hour week in this job, and I don't think there'd be any staffer, a full-time staffer in Parliament that could do a 35-hour week.
Everyone that knows you, though, knows that, you're on Facebook all day. I mean, if you took those hours out and the Sudoku and all that sort of stuff, you actually did some work. No, I'm joking. But do you think for most of us that have office jobs, at least, there's a certain amount of, should we call it pissing around, that we could do without?
I don't know. My personal thing is it's peaks and troughs. So some weeks you might work 50 hours. Some weeks you might work 35.
When was the last time you had one of those?
It was a recess last week, so no. But I mean, the thing is, yeah, you might take a lunch break in a recess. You might not take a lunch break in sitting weeks, and so yeah, personal thing. I think that I've worked in Australia and we work 35-hour weeks. You start at 8, you finish at 4, and you go to the beach. But that was a completely different job. So it depends on the job, it depends on your role, it depends on the pressure. It's, different.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you very much. We'll be talking to Louise after the show about changing your working hours. Paul Conway, thank you. Sorry, I just need to talk to Libby for a minute there. Sure. New Zealanders, are we productive? We heard from Eugenie about this. So are we productive workers?
Well, unfortunately, New Zealand's productivity track record isn't that great. If you look at the data, we do work more hours per capita than people on average across OECD countries, but unfortunately, the amount of value add that we create for each hour in the job is something like 25 to 30% less than the OECD average.
Is that because, like Libby, we're spending most of our day on Facebook?
The reasons for New Zealand's productivity underperformance are complex, and that's why we have a productivity commission. So we're part of the process of sort of nutting all of that out. But in terms of how do we turn it around, and there's no reason why we can't. That requires politicians and regulators and policymakers to really just make sure that our regulations and our institutional frameworks are conducive to productivity growth. It requires business owners and managers to be prepared to turn your business inside out in order to extract maximum value from new technologies.
Do you think if we just took an hour off most people's working days, those of us that work in offices, we'd do the same amount of work in one less hour?
Oh, if we had to, I mean, this is the essence of productivity. Productivity is about extracting the most value add that you possibly can out of the shortest amount of time. And if you do that, if we increase productivity, then wages go up, our incomes go up, and it does open up a bunch of different choices, be it to work a bit less or to invest more in education and health or to look after our environment. Whatever our aspiration is as a society or as an individual, productivity growth is the key to achieving that.
I can see